All right, I'm back with the passing show. Hal Gill live with Air Wings. And this is just a little bit of who, what, when, and where. And we're taking in the passing show. So Sylvia Garza's joined. Good to see you. I see you must actually have paid subscriptions. That's great. I don't know who you're supporting offhand, but it's a big deal to be a Substack subscriber at a paid level for anybody, anywhere, because this is the new economy, by the way. So we're taking in the passing show here in Washington, D.C. I'm turning on S Street Northwest. Sidewalk's partially blocked. I don't know if I'm even supposed to be walking here. Some skeletons giving greetings. Don't forget, folks, this is a temp job. And we're all in the game of Beat the Reaper. The Reaper always wins. Carved pumpkins. Kitty cat tile. Done some of those in the past. They're always great. Motif. Some other travelers in the passing show. We're on 19th Street. Hi.
Hey.
Coming along. Coming along. It's my friend Lauren back there. Taking in S Street's architecture. Some beautiful places. If you like that sort of thing. All built probably in the 19 noughts to teens or thereafter. Not much of this was developed until around 1904, I think, when my place was built. But some probably older. Be nice to know, actually. I could probably look it up somewhere and find out when all these different properties were first built. I think a lot of it's stored on Zillow as things are put for sale and the metadata is grabbed up there, and Trulia and I don't know what all. Is it Redfin? That's another. I was walking along here on June 20th of 2020, a day which will live in infamy in my memory, and I spilled my coffee as I tripped and caught my weight with a stiff arm against this fence. I did not catch myself on the bar. I catch myself on one of these little spiky things. This one here. I think my blood has caused some erosion there. Oxidation through the paint. As I bled onto the sidewalk, there was a good blood stain there for quite a while. Right about here. Probably some of it left. Yes, darkened. And, yeah. That was not fun. Impaling my hand. Went straight through. I pulled it up and off, and guy stopped and tore up a sock to make a tourniquet and tied that off to cut the circulation so I didn't bleed out, but it didn't hit an artery. So it wasn't probably necessary, but it was a good precaution as they waited for the ambulance, and they trucked me off to George Washington University Hospital, and I sat and waited to be sewed up till about 1 o'clock when they did that work. The needles going in to numb the hand or something else, man. That they got me all stitched up and loosely attached so I could heal. And up from within, treat it with peroxide and keep it clean and dressed. Man, that was a mistake. Someone said, you really didn't go on a good work that day. It was true, I didn't. I didn't much like what I was doing anyway and left it the following winter and stayed with the next gig until that fell out from under me on August 2nd, 2024. And since then, I've been doing the passing show. Since then, I've been an active flaneur, walking along, amiably documenting life as it happens, laying down primary documentation, potentially for historians of the future, potentially for no good purpose at all, other than contributing to the data glut. But there's information to be had here about who, what, when, and where. And we get to go Go we shall. Heading back to the bunker. Going to be taking my wife out after we have lunch. Thinking of eating some greens, green leafy vegetables, maybe with some cruciferous crunch added there too. And that should be quite filling and keep me going for another 24 or more. Healthy, happy, contented, living the passing show. Next door to the Embassy of Moldova. If you don't know about Moldova, don't be surprised. It's a very small country between Romania and what's left of the USSR. I forget what the other border is. It might be Ukraine. They were showing solidarity with the Ukraine up until recently. I don't see the Ukrainian banner out there now. I wonder if they had falling out. Albania across the street, embassy building had been worked on by my friend Jack, among others. And he was an architect who did the work on that building when it was owned by some woman with Texas oil money years ago. Jet aircraft going up out of Nashville. I always like to stop and see where they're going. So let's take a look at it as he comes up over the Embassy of Albania, my neighbor's house. Or is it banked that sharply? Should be a view. There it goes. There's one high up above as well. Let's see what that is. Switch to radar and turning off the camera for the time being. Flight radar. Upgrading continue. Wellington. Looks like that was flight to JFK in New York from DCA. An Embraer E1S5LR Delta connection operated by Republic Airways. Then high up above, heading out. See it? I don't know where it is. There it is. Heading out over Burke, Virginia, at 36,000 feet, New York, LaGuardia, to Charlotte, Boeing 737 MAX 8. Just as contrail, just going behind the Embassy of Albania. I'll turn that off, and there's the contrail up there above the embassy for that flight from LaGuardia to Charlotte. Got other aircraft visible, not really so much. But I do like to take in the passing show that way and monitor flights as they go by. And consider that there are all these people airborne at any given moment, in addition to those of us who are making our way into our gardens. Take a seat on a bench. For a few minutes ahead of lunch. The time is at 11:18. Zero acknowledgement. Kind of astonished. Harriet has joined. Harriet. Ray Glitter, Ashman, Bold Insight, Sylvia Garza. So yeah, the passing show is just a little bit of who, what, when, and where from whatever perspective I happen to have. And I don't know. I just know how things seem to me. I just walked back to my house with the architect who worked on this house across the street right out there. Years ago, he's retired now and lives on T Street. Jack had a long and interesting life. He was son of a bomber pilot of the 100th Bomb Group that figured in a story that Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks did recently. What was it called? Masters of the Air. If you caught that miniseries by any chance on Apple TV, I think it was. That was Jack's dad, John Brady, who got shot down and ended up serving time in a prisoner of war camp before coming back and having Jack. And he survived that, and Jack's a result of his survival of being a B-17 pilot shot down out of the 100th Bomb Group. Masters of the Air. Yeah, it's great that they're commemorated and remembered, and that I get to hang out with his son, which I've been doing regularly for a while. Talking, walking and talking. A lot of times I'm talking about the way I view things, and how I could be wrong, and how he tries to stay aloof from a lot of the things that I point out that I think we could improve upon were we concerned enough to do so. But then again, it takes action, it takes risk, and just to say things is a start, but they have to be followed up by action because when all is said and done, a lot more is said than done. So, do we have anybody else? Zero. Love the buildings. Zero. I don't know what the zero question mark means. You want to explain that one? Zero. Totally unknowing what that means. I'm glad you love the buildings. But as I go on, what does zero mean? Yeah, sure. Okay. Waiting. So er, the idea that Jack and I were talking about, zero reactions. I don't know what I was referencing entirely. I have asked before that people who are here and watching the passing show, maybe listening in, identify where you're from. Just that simple, or anything that's on your mind, something we could converse about. But the last few times I've done that in the last couple of days, nobody has said anything. Mm. I may have been thinking about an email I sent out earlier today that I sent out a week ago, and there were zero responses to it, except for one. There was one response out of 80 some recipients, and that was in reference to something to deal with my home group, Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's as if I haven't spoken. And that kind of thing happens within our group fairly often. And I think it's a hallmark of how there's an inside crowd and an outside crowd. I like being an outsider. I like being a disruptive element, but for a purpose where I am trying to bring us back to fundamental principles. Things like our very lives depend upon our constant thought of others and how we might help meet their needs. Something to think about. Connection, togetherness. When we are together, we have an opportunity to learn from one another if we can listen to each other respectfully. If we're unable to do so, if we're triggered by something we hear, to close our ears and formulate a hard and fast opinion and judgment of another, we limit ourselves, we impoverish ourselves, we tend to make ourselves, and sometimes it's necessary for self-protection. Not everybody is well. That's one of the very important things for anyone entering into the fellowship of AA to be aware of which they should be aware, is that not everybody is well. Use your discernment. But in using your discernment, do find those people who are conforming as closely as you can gather to the principles laid out in the fundamental literature available at AA.org. And if you don't know what AA.org is, it's just that. Alcoholics Anonymous's World Services website. And all the literature's out there, particularly in pamphlet form. The pamphlets get updated much more frequently than other pieces of literature. And many of them have been put out for very specific purposes. Nobody prints anything unless they've got an axe to grind, unless there's a good reason to do it. It costs money to change the words, to print things, right? To do editing costs something. So somebody's spending money for a reason, and they're trying to do it to refine the message and clear up misunderstandings. In 2014, for example, they published a thing called hi, Angie Sharp. Do you want to come live, by the way? You tried, I think, to get me live earlier today that I didn't expect, and I missed it. I was busy. We had talked about being live at 11, possibly, but I'm going to schedule this for 10. So if you mention it. Okay. I was on something else and I lost that thread, but it's something to the effect of that we have the ability, we have been entrusted with principles which, when practiced, can alleviate the suffering of the chronic alcoholic or addict if they practice the principles in all their affairs. But they have to principles are to practice them. And we have an obligation, in fact, a duty to pass on freely what's been passed to us so that others can benefit from this experience of shared suffering. That's really our foundation, shared suffering. All human beings share in the experience of being born, being cared for by other primates who probably have about as much business raising children as I have of operating heavy machinery. Um, I could probably do it, but I'd be clumsy at it, right? And then there's all the sequelae that come after being handled clumsily after being born. And one thing leads to another, and you get this cascading effect. And they're patterns, right? They're patterns that are reiterated, reinforced. And eventually we get into you know, some behaviors that don't serve us. Behaviorists know this very well. Okay, I'm going to schedule our live and that you asked for. And so just let me do that, okay? And I'll be doing that shortly. You'll look for it. It will come over. You'll be a co-host. That's how Harrowings works. Unless you want to do your own live with me, and I'll be happy to be your guest, but you have to let me know first. That's all. And there's a lot to learn on Substack, right? Everybody. There's so much we have to figure out as we go along. And there's a lot I haven't figured out. And the platform's changing constantly, but it's a wonderful platform. And what I started out with was somebody was on here, and I noticed they had one of those little flowers by their name, and Anne is one of my paying subscribers, so I consider her on my board of directors. Yeah, there it is. Sylvia Garza has one of those little flowers by her name, which means she does paying subscriptions. She's paying to, she's supporting some other Substack writer. We need to support each other. If you don't have one of those little things on your name, you're not supporting somebody else. Please think about doing so. It doesn't cost that much, something per month. Anybody. It doesn't have to be me. I'd love to have more paying subscribers. I have 13 on my board of directors now. In other words, 13 paying subscribers. It's not enough to pay the bills, but for less than a week. But I'm doing it out of pocket, doing it freely, with the idea that eventually maybe it'll build up. And maybe it's just people don't know. And how would they know if we don't tell them? This is the same thing as the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous I was talking about. If we don't talk about the principles of live and let live, easy does it, first things first, how would we know about them? And if we don't practice them, how do we get good at it? We don't get good at anything if we don't practice it. And I have so much literature that supports this. And if I don't read that literature, I don't know it. I can listen, but if I just go to meetings and listen to other people, I don't pick up that message necessarily. I pick up all kinds of other messages, which may or may not be true. There were some pretty alarming things that happened in the business meeting today, such as our chair seemed to think we'd already had a done deal about getting a phone for something. And then it's like, no, you have to run that by the group. What the subcommittee did needs to be run by the group as a whole. And it's like our chair didn't know that. I don't think they read is the problem. It's all outlined. All the responsibilities really are outlined in the AA group pamphlet, easily, freely available. I'll probably send them the link one of these days. They'll probably hate me for it. Nobody likes being told what to do. It's one of those primate behaviors, right? It's galling to think that I was in ignorance and somebody's trying to enlighten me without me asking to be enlightened. That's an affront to a lot of us these days. And it's unfortunate, but it's primate behavior. And that's what I've got today. I don't really have a lot much else. Okay. I will be pre-scheduling you later today. So I will make sure I do that. It's a pretty easy thing to do. My Harrowings Live things I schedule. If you want to schedule yours with me and do your own thing, that's fine too. We can do that. But for 10 a.m. Monday, I'll be scheduling that. Toot sweet. All I got. Thanks for joining. Bye.